Pray. Father, we thank you for this evening. We thank you for the breeze that keeps our air clean. We thank you for this food that was prepared for us. Father, we pray for your blessing on us, our time together, and the food to our bodies. Bless Stephen as he brings his word that you put in his life, Lord. We just thank you for everything. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Journey guide and fellow brother to a bunch of you out here. Thank you for all coming out. Just to give a quick hand out there to Michael Stevens and his crew for preparing the food and things like that. And then afterward, I think we got some dessert planned back there from Greg from Doc Bernstein, so that'll be fun. So I'm gonna, if you guys don't mind, I'm gonna open us up in prayer. Lord, I thank you for this opportunity to be out here with all my brothers. And Lord, I just lift up this night to you. I lift up our ears and hearts and minds to the guidance that you have set before us. Lord, I just pray for those hearts and minds to be open for where you want us to go with it tonight. Lord, I pray ahead of time for all these men that are here and their families, and declare victory over darkness and anything else that needs to be brought out into the light. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. All right, so I've been getting a bunch of questions lately about what is an M6. So for those of you guys who don't know what an M6 is, it's M standing for Men at 6. Men at 6. And so we get together, we have dinner, and this is designed for us to bring friends, sons, grandsons, fathers, grandfathers, and we all get out here and have some fellowship together. It's a quick hour and a half, maybe 2, where we get to get around a table, enjoy a nice meal, and then connect with each other. So that's M6. So coming up at the end of this week, we have M24. So it's not some complicated algorithm. M24 is men for 24 hours. And what this is designed to do is it gives us a solid 24 hours where we can kind of disconnect from what's going on back here in our families and really kind of dig in and get in with each other and do life together for 24 hours. And what the cool thing about this one versus other M24s that I've been to is that we're right here. The city's right here. So if you want to come out during part of it and then go home, you can do that. There'll be camping for your RVs if you need to do that. There's tent, and then some guys are just going to be sleeping in their cars. But we get together for 24 hours and we get to connect and do life together. Really, that's what it's all about. You get to hear men's testimonies. The food's obviously great based upon tonight, and it's a continuation through that process. So it's not just for you, it's for your friends, it's for your sons, your grandsons, your fathers, your grandfathers, and get them signed up. You know, and then it's easy enough to just get them on there. You go to influencercentralcoast.org, and there's only 2 things on there. And again, we're keeping it nice and simple. There's 2 things on there so you don't get lost on the website. They have where you find a journey group and sign up for M24. So from M24, then we have the journey groups. And the journey groups is where we connect with each other once a week and encourage each other to stay in a relationship, an abiding relationship with Jesus Christ on a daily basis. So that's another question I get a lot from the guys that are coming to the journey groups. Well, what about this hour and a half or these 2 hours that we're here together? That's not the journey group. The journey group's happening with you on a daily basis, your journaling process, you're connecting with God. And then for an hour and a half, once a week, we get together and we encourage each other to stay in that. So just wanted to give you a little heads up on how that whole process works. With M6, we get dinner. M24, we hang out with each other for a day. In journey groups, we do life with each other every day of the week. And then we're also, what you'll end up with is a whole bunch of guys that you never knew you were going to be friends with, and you got friends now too. So it's a good process. So I just wanted to... wanted to share with you guys a little bit about M24 and what it means to me. So about 2.5 years ago, it's early 2016, my father-in-law, John Lohr, he would not leave me alone. He kept on hitting me up. Hey, you should go to this, you come check this out. And I'm like, okay, all right, yeah, I'll try to figure it out. I mean, obviously he's my father-in-law, so he knows that I've got 3 kids. And I kept on telling him, like, I'm busy, you're gonna have to give me more notice than this. And then he finally called me up and he said, are you gonna go to M24? It's this October in Bakersfield, and I'll take you, and we'll just go out there. And so I'm talking to my wife, and I tell her, your dad's not going to leave me alone. He keeps on asking me to come to this M24. And she goes, well, why don't you go and just kind of appease him and then see what he's talking about. And so I had it in my mind that I was going to fulfill John's need for me to be there. Little did I know I was about to get wrecked. So we get out there, and this is way out in the foothills in Bakersfield, in a little place called Woody, California, that's behind another little place called Delano. So if you don't know where either of those two are, you're out in the middle of nowhere, and you're surrounded by cow pies and a whole bunch of guys and no showers. So we get out there to M24. Again, I've got this whole mindset that I'm going out there for my father-in-law, and I'm going to go out there, and maybe finally he'll shut up and stop asking me to go to this M24 thing. And God had a different plan in store. What happened in that M24 for me is I stopped looking at my father-in-law as a father-in-law and looked at him as a brother in Christ. And what you get out there and you look out and you see 800 to 1,000 guys in that particular setting, and you go, there's all of us here for some particular reason. Well, God's got all of those different lives that are being orchestrated and put together, and they're being put together for a good reason. And you come out there and you come out of that process and you can't really explain why it works so well. Well, God meets you there. And when that whole process is covered in prayer, and you get that many guys in close proximity with that many other guys that are having a daily abiding relationship, you can't help but be infected by that process. And so this is an extension of what's going on here. When we get M24 here, we're putting you in close proximity with a bunch of guys that we know are taking that relationship with Jesus Christ very personal and serious. And they're connected on a daily basis. And that's why we're trying to get all of you guys and all the other men that you know that are in your life in close proximity with these guys that are having that relationship. I've been able, over the past couple of weeks, I've been able to restore my relationship with my father, my earthly father. And we're now looking to start a father and son journey group on Saturday mornings via virtual setup. He's in Idaho, and this relationship has been restored because God put all of this stuff into place. About two weeks ago, I asked my dad to go with me to Sodo. Sodo's this other grouping that we're going to be doing out in Arkansas. And I was really let down by the process of my dad giving me what I felt like a bunch of BS answers. And he's telling me, I'm going to be snoring. I don't want to, affect anybody else's sleep. I said, Dad, there's going to be all kinds of guys out there snoring. he goes, well, my diet, I want a low-salt diet, so, I don't want to affect the chefs. So you can get whatever diet you need to, just don't eat as much. So I had to take an inventory of what was I asking my dad to go? Was I asking him to go for me, or was I asking him to go for him? And had to do an inventory of what was going on there for me. And God gave me a very specific scripture. It's Philippians 4:9. And I was asking God, what am I supposed to do in this situation? Because I'm feeling really bitter about this process. And God gave me the scripture, and it says, the things you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, practice these things, and the God of peace shall be with you. And I was given an opportunity the other day where I didn't have any work going on. My dad calls me first thing in the morning, and I didn't want to answer that phone call because I didn't know what I was going to say to him. I'm pretty pissed off that he didn't want to go with me to Soda and he's giving me a bunch of crap answers. And so I ended up answering the phone call, and my dad goes, how you doing? And I said, good. Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you doing? He said, good. He goes, what do you got going on? Because we had a phone call probably 4 or 5 days prior to that. So, I got the soda thing coming up. And my dad throws up all over the phone. Just, well, I got to do all this stuff, and I got to, you know, and what I didn't realize is that both of us were carrying a whole bunch of crap into this relationship that God had designed for us to have a close relationship with. And we got to hash it out for the next 45 minutes. And what that conversation ended with was my dad and I making a promise to each other that we were going to be upfront, forward, and we want to sit down and go through this journey process together. And we're going to be starting that within 2 weeks. So it's huge. So I say all of that just to kind of give you a little taste of what it means to me go out to an M24. The reason why I try to show up here at M6 every time, and then I also am enjoying the journey groups as well. So get out there, get on the influencercentralcoast.org. You can find those different events on there, and then you can also sign up on influencers.org for the global ministries, and they send out every morning you get a scripture and find out about Rocky's blog. So if you guys are on the fence and thinking maybe this isn't for you, connect with the journey guide. There's a bunch of us here, and we'll bring them up here at the end of the testimony tonight, and so you guys can see who these journey guides are. And get out there, get into the M6, get into the M24, get into the journey groups, because they will change your life. I guarantee it. So with that, I'd like to bring up Jim Pennington.
Hey guys, speaking of the journey groups, there's, like we did last month, there are about 8 or 9 groups that meet Monday through Friday, and they're on your tables. So you don't have to sign up, just show up. And we'll welcome you in, and if you'd like to get into that, there's also a book on that table. Take it, it's free. That's an introduction. I got more after we're done if you want in the back. Just come and see us back there. We're glad to give you one. But thanks, Sean, for the opening remarks and for what the M24 and Influencers has done in your life and for your family. Because that's what it's all about. Our first mission field is our family. Nothing else really matters. If that's not in order, good luck with everything else. And preaching to the choir, I'm sure. But anyway, you are, as Sean said, welcome to come out. How many of you are coming to M24? Just raise your hand. All right. Cool. All you guys that raise your hand, bring somebody. Or bring 2 or bring 3. Because, like Sean said, it's not really for us, for you. It's for who you can bring. Go home and try to invite them to, XYZ Bible study next week and see how that works out for you. But I'll bet you can get them to come out to this beautiful ranch and get around a bunch of guys that, there's no pressure, there's no nothing, but come out and check it out if you would. Really deeply think about it if you can, and bring some guys. If you're not signed up, come anyway. We'll handle it. All right? But those of you that are coming, sign up if you would. Yeah, Doug?
Let them know if they can only make it Friday.
Yeah, that's true. If you can only make, it's Friday noon. It's this Friday noon to Saturday noon. If you can only come out for the evening and listen to the speaker and the worship band that we're going to have outside, we're going to do it. It'll all be done out there on the lawn. Okay, and if you can only come to that and can't be here the next morning, you can't be here. But if you can make it for both, it'd be great. The 2 days kind of do join together. So, but if you want to go home afterwards, Friday night, you don't want to bring your RV or camper, or you don't want to stay in a tent, or you don't want to sleep in your car, and can't blame you there. Go home. There's probably none of us in here that live further than 10, 15 minutes away, and then just come back in the morning for breakfast at 7, and then we'll have the morning program at 8 o'clock to about 10:30, and then you got all day Saturday to go be with your family. So really consider that if you would, guys. Really, really, really consider it. Hey, I was reminded by somebody, my friend, I'm honored and blessed to have I have a friend that's also my pastor. Hopefully we can all say that, but I can say it because it's true. But it's his 50th birthday today, and I think we ought to sing happy birthday to him. Woo! Steve Henry from the Harvest Church, stand up back there. Let's sing happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Stephen. Happy birthday to you. And Steve is going to be here for M24, so call your pastor when you get home tonight, even if you're not friends with him. Call him. Get him out here and let him see what's going on the Central Coast. Get him behind this thing. A lot of them are already. There's a lot of I think there's more pastors in the crowd. But anyway, so now's the time for, we're going to have a man come up and share his story with you. And those of you that have been here before kind of know the drill. He's going to share his story for 30 minutes or 40, something like that. And how many of you, this is your first time to M6? Yep, always keeps growing, doesn't it? Well, it is indeed my honor to introduce this man. He has become a very, very good friend of mine. And, you know, if anybody believes in coincidences, I'm sorry, but this man was born in England about a month before, he's a little older than me, about a month before I was in 1960. And our paths crossed about a year and a couple months ago, and we were playing golf, and I'm not much of a golfer. I was playing with my brother-in-law Rod, and Rod invited me to play with Steve, and I'd met him at church a time or two, but I hadn't got to know him yet. And he said, "Hey, we're playing golf," and so I went out to Black Lake over there where my brother-in-law and sister live, and we went to play. We got on the tee box and how are you and all that kind of stuff, and we started. Somehow influencers came up, and he had heard, you know, in church. My pastor is my friend, and they announce all this stuff in church, so our men in the church know what's going on. And so he said, "Yeah, I'm going to join a journey group." I says, "Oh, are you really?" And he says, "Yeah, I'm going to go. I think I'll go Wednesday." I says, "Oh, cool, cool, and that'd be great, you know, in the loft, because that's one of the locations. Wednesday evenings at 6 at the loft." And I said, "Yeah, I do the Friday mornings." And, you know, all you guys know my joke. You know, the men meet in the mornings, right? You know, and well, I don't know if that's what did it. He says, "I'll be at yours," and he was, and he was there the whole time and went through the journey last year, and he's been to Soli, and we just became very good friends. And as a bonus on top of that, our wives became very good friends. And it's just a sweet thing. You guys know what I'm talking about when, you know, we have a lot of friends, but it's just so nice when our wives hook up and hit it off, and it's just such a blessing for me and Amy. And we've been on 2 vacations already, and we're going on another one in a few months. And you guys know, you don't go on vacation with just anybody, right? You know how that is. And so it's just a blessing, and it's an honor to introduce my good friend, my brother in Christ, Mr. Stephen King.
Wow, there's a lot of you. Can you hear me? Can you understand me?
Sort of.
So, my story's, my testimony is probably a little different to many of those that you've heard. Firstly, I'm going to deliver it in English. But don't panic, because I'm going to speak slowly and clearly, because I've been told to. The second thing is, My story, my testimony is not one of those heart-wrenching tales of people, men who suffer terrible abuse. It's a story of a guy who goes through a series of chapters in his life and learns over a period of years what's actually important, what's meaningful. Before I do that, how many people are actually on a journey group or have been through a journey group? Okay. How many people have been to Solely Business? For those of you who put your hand up to both of those questions, well done, brothers. For those of you who only put your hand up to one, do the other. For those who didn't put your hand up to any, do both, because my story, my testimony really all comes out of the intimate, vertical relationship that I formed with the Lord through primarily the journey and Solely Business. Okay. So, you know when you go on a journey, you leave home and you're kind of excited, and you know where you're going and there's a destination and you're kind of excited about that, and there's this bit in the middle that kind of boring. Well, that's my story, so just bear with me. Like many of us, my generation and current generations, I'm a product of a broken marriage. My mother was married 3 times. She also had a series of relationships, which kind of meant that I never received that fatherly love, that guidance, that validation that I've learned that now all of us men need. We may wear a pretty good veneer, we may have a pretty good cover over it, but I have learned that when you don't get that fatherly male affirmation at home, sometimes it can put you on a different path. The path it put me on was seeking that kind of validation, that kind of fatherly love outside the home. For me, that looked like being an overachiever, just trying to do whatever I could do, whether it was with a teacher or a soccer coach or ultimately an employer, to get that attaboy, you're doing good, you're matching up, everything like that. So kind of went through school and did pretty okay, and then got to work, and again I was just looking for the supervisors and the people I work for to give me some kind of feedback, some kind of positive praise and affirmation. People at work, when you're like that, they can think that you're ambitious, but I don't know about the rest of you, it wasn't ambition that drove me forward, it was fear. I didn't want to be called out. I didn't want to be told by that man who employed me, or that man who supervised me, that I wasn't cutting it, that I wasn't good enough, that I didn't meet his standards. So I just kind of went on and on through different jobs. I was trying to catch a break. I was trying to get into a job where they'd say, hey, you're doing good, and just leave me there, let me rest. But that doesn't happen, does it? You do okay, and they say, hey, great, now can you do this? And then can you do that? And then you get another boss. And then you've got to please that other boss. And then you do well for him, and so it goes on. Well, that was me. I was on a treadmill, and hey, I can see none of you guys are crying, and that's okay, but there's kind of a purpose here. I was doing good at work. Everything was fine. From a personal perspective, obviously I married a woman at work. I never went anywhere else, so I mean, they were the only women I met. So she and I, we were great, worked for the same company, commuted to work together, commuted home together, knew all the same people, were at the same meetings, I mean, it was just about work. It was just about proving myself in the world, judging myself by those standards, judging myself by those values, surrounding myself with those material things that were supposed to indicate to others that I was doing fine, that I was making it and everything else. That went on for like 25 years. I was in the same company, just moving up, moving up, moving up. With my wife. Don't get me wrong, I thought I had it made. I thought it was pretty good. 2005, the company I was working for contacted me and said, hey, do you want to transfer to the US? I said, heck no, that's full of Americans. So they gave me the opportunity, and my wife Elaine and we moved over here in 2005, and the situation continued to be pretty much the same, although obviously better, because we were doing it in the US. And by the way, guys, you guys have got the best country. I've worked in 18 countries, and you guys have got the best country, so thank you very much. But something had to break. 2008, Elaine, my wife, diagnosed with pneumonia. Yeah, that didn't seem too bad. You know, maybe take an afternoon off work or something, go to the doctor. The diagnosis turned out not to be pneumonia, but to be lung cancer. And not just any lung cancer, stage 4 lung cancer, which is pretty terminal. Her diagnosis was 9 months that she was expected to survive through pure, I don't know, toughness, self-belief, excellent medical attention. She actually lasted 18 months, and then she passed. She passed in December the 3rd, 2009. At that point, my life got kind of a little bit screwed up, because then I had no restrictions on me in terms of, hey, I can work even harder, I can focus even more on the worldly things. And probably like other people who find themselves in that situation, everything became accessible to me. I chased a lot of women, and I caught quite a few of them. And I did a lot of stuff that I wasn't particularly proud of. No, I didn't do things that you've heard other men stand here and give in their testimony, but I became pretty promiscuous, and I really wasn't the man that I wanted to be. It got so bad that married women were fair game. Even my sister-in-law became fair game. This isn't anything that I'm proud of, but it's part of the story. So I was on a pretty downward spiral, although according to the world and anybody looking in, hey, I was doing pretty good. I had a good job, I had a good income, I was out and about, I was always with pretty ladies, things like that. But my life was just becoming more and more shallow, more and more empty, more and more pointless. And probably that's what the enemy wants us to do and how he wants us to be. So other things had to start to change. I decided that I couldn't continue to live in the house that I'd shared with Elaine. I couldn't continue to have all that furniture and everything, so I sold everything and bought a new house on a new housing development. And at that time, there were a number of companies who were canvassing the area. You know, hey, we'll come in and we'll sort you out with interior design, we'll sort you out with this, that and the other. So I got a card and a flyer from one of these canvassers, and I looked at the lady on the card and I thought, heck yeah, she can come round at any time. And that's how shallow I was. So I picked up the phone and I said, yeah, come round, I need help. I need interior design. I need all sorts of stuff. 3 days later, I knock on the door, I open the door, and to this day, the most beautiful woman I've ever seen, the most beautiful I've ever met, greeted me on the doorstep. Elaine had been passed for 2.5 years at this point. So this lady, Kim, she came in and measured up, and I'm chasing her around the house, you know, oh my God, you know, I want that, and I want that, and I want all of it, all of it, yeah. Keep coming back, yeah, I need it. But she was going through her own situation. So we completed the business on the house, and I didn't see her, and then 8 months later, she gave me a call, said, hey, do you remember me? I said, hell yeah. She said, do you want to meet for coffee? I said, coffee, lunch, dinner, you name it, I'll be there. So Kim and I met and went out for lunch, and the lunch turned into an afternoon of good discussion, and then we agreed to meet again. So on the second date, we're having a really nice time, and she says to me, how's your walk with the Lord? I was like, wow. I met a few ladies. Nobody's ever asked me how my walk with the Lord was. So my response was kind of casual. It was that, hey, I went to church in England. What I remember is there was a guy at the front dressed in robes, and he spent a lot of time telling me how bad I was, telling me what a sinner I was, and really telling me that if I wanted to get to God, I probably needed to go through him. So I said to Kim, I said, yeah, I'm not really big on religion. So she kind of just sat there, and we finished our afternoon together, and she went home. Well, I subsequently found out that that was a real deal breaker for her. Kim is a real God-fearing, faithful woman. And she went home, I subsequently learned, and she said both to her friends and more importantly to the Lord, hey, what's with this guy? Why have you introduced me to this guy if he doesn't know the Lord and he is not faithful? I can't enter into a relationship that in which I'm going to be unequally yoked. So apparently the Lord said to her, hey, give him one more try, you know, just one more time. Well, that next date, I thought, hey, we'll go for a drive. So we went and we drove across the Golden Gate Bridge. Now, because I'm not terribly bright, I'd forgotten that I hadn't been across the Golden Gate Bridge until I stood on that bridge on the 9-month anniversary of my wife Elaine's diagnosis. And we stood there and we watched the sun come up, and she shouted out, hey, I'm still here, I'm still alive. So suddenly I'm driving across the Golden Gate Bridge, I've got Kim with me, and this whole memory comes flooding back to me. And I think the word is wrecked, I just got wrecked. Pulled over into a parking lot, said, hey, you gotta give me a minute, I'm a bit messed up here. So she sat in the car and she's like, what the heck's going on here? She opened the glove box, does that translate, that little thing on the dashboard you can? She opened the glove box in my car, my Bible fell out. She's like, I got back in the car, she said, I thought you weren't a man of faith. How come you got a Bible in your glove box? I said, oh, I always have a Bible with me. I said, what I said is I don't like religion. I said, I believe in the Lord, I believe in him, but I don't like church. Okay. Breakthrough moment. She's like, hey, let's go to church. We'll go tomorrow. I'll introduce you to my church. It's all good. Suddenly I realized there's a way of knowing the Lord, there's a way of worshipping the Lord that is joyful and happy. It's not about condemnation. It's about celebration. It's about love. So, needless to say, our relationship went really well. 6 months later, we get married. We get married on a Friday in Napa Valley. Monday morning, we're on a plane to Cape Town, South Africa. I've got a new job. Come on, sweetie, it's going to be fine. Just, we're going to Africa. So, I've got a faithful woman. She's led me to the Lord. Yet we get to South Africa, and for 2.5 years, instead of me getting closer to her, I'm trying to bring her closer to me. I'm trying to bring her into my world instead of going into her world. She takes me to work at 6 o'clock in the morning. She comes back at 6 o'clock at night, and I just say, oh, just one more thing, just sit there for another hour and a half while I finish this important thing. Through marrying Kim, I gained a family. I had a son of 22, a daughter of 20, and a son-in-law of 21. And I was in Africa for 2.5 years, and I didn't get to know my family. Still wrapped up in the world, still chasing the dream, still valuing, measuring my life on worldly success. Something had to happen. December 2014, I'm in Cape Town. Kim's in the Bay Area visiting her family. She telephones me. Hey, the police are here. They want to arrest you. You've been charged with 5 felonies. Yeah, a bit of a shocker. I wasn't expecting that one. Because of the position I held in the company, I knew that me being arrested, sent for trial, convicted, sent to prison, and was not going to put my company through that. So I immediately phoned my supervisor in Singapore and I said, hey, I resign. What do you mean you resign? You've been here 32 years. You're regional vice president. I said, this has happened. I said, I can't drag the company through it. He said, get on the plane, go home. Okay, so what happened? When my wife Elaine was sick, we never considered her dying. Stupid. We never made provision for her dying. We never got her affairs in order. After she passed, I was clearing out papers. I came across a will. In that will, she left everything to me, with the exception of some bequests to her nephew, niece, and godchild. Nothing to her family, nothing to her stepbrother and sister. I'd never seen this will before. I'm in a state of grief, just lost her. I'm just like, oh my gosh, these are her last wishes. I've got to get this done. I forged my wife's signature on that will because I didn't want it to go through probate. I'm all about doing the business. I've got to get it done. I can't wait for it to go to probate. I didn't think just write the checks out of your bank account and let it go. I forged the signature on her will. 2009. This is now 2015. When I forged the signature on her will, I paid out 4 times more than she had bequested to each of the people she named, and I also made a payment to her stepsister, the lady who I kind of got into a relationship with in 2009 after Elaine passed. That lady wasn't very pleased when I met and married Kim. That lady wasn't very pleased when she found out the size of her late sister's estate. She spent 5 years building a case against me for this fraudulent will document. I flew back to the US, and I was so protected because even though there was a warrant out for my arrest, I did not get arrested when I landed at San Francisco Airport. I got home and we just started the legal process. I was charged with 5 felony counts from fraud, grand theft, you name it. We went through the criminal process and I never denied that I had signed that will. But I also showed that I'd paid out 4 times more than was in the bequest, and I'd also made payments to people who weren't even named in the will. So the district attorney accepted that I wasn't doing this for financial gain, I was just expediting the will. Those 5 felony charges ended up with me collecting litter for 28 days. I was protected. She subsequently charged me with money laundering, she charged me with tax evasion, she pursued criminal action against me on a civil basis in the UK and again in the US. She really put us through a very trying time. But there was a reason. The reason was, suddenly, I'd lost my job. 32 years with the same company. I truly believed that the company probably wouldn't survive without me, of course. I mean, it's only a major multinational oil company. I mean, obviously they were going to miss me. Big shock, they didn't miss a beat, not a single beat. It just went on. The king is dead, no pun intended, the king is dead, long live the king. I mean, these things, they just go on, buddy, you know. And suddenly, I got a family, I got a wife. I got a wife who stands by me every single step of the way. She didn't do anything wrong, but she went through every single thing that I went through. I had a son, a daughter, a son-in-law, who were just waiting for me to embrace them in the way that I've been embracing the material things in life from the day that they met me. We got through all the court cases, I picked up litter, my record's clean. We moved down to the Central Coast. I got baptized, and I really started to focus on the important things in life. The priority, serving the Lord, loving the Lord, being close to Him. And then my family. It was 2015. 2017, my stepdaughter, who's now at that time 26 and married, she asked me to formally adopt her. The 3 kids, son, daughter, son-in-law, they all call me Dad. They know who I am now. 2018, as Jim said, I first of all spoke to my friend Mike Maddy up there. He introduced me to the Journey Group as a concept. And then I joined the Journey Group with Jim. Partway through the Journey Group, I went to Soli Business. That's why it's important, guys. Soli Business, you have to go through some stuff. I met who my real father is. That guy I'd been chasing my whole life. I found out who he is. And I found out he loves me. And he loved me every day of my life. And he planned out my life. And he wanted that success and happiness for me. As I'm going through the journey, and those of you who've been through it, you'll know this. There comes a point, and it's at Soli and it's on the journey. Are there any barriers between you and the Lord? And I'm like, heck no, we're good. So the Lord says to me, how's your sister? What? How's your sister? I said, I hate my sister. I said, I haven't seen my sister in 20 years. How's your sister? I'm like, oh man, I gotta do something about this. But of course I wasn't going to do anything instantly because I'm not doing that. So I go to my journey group on the Friday, and Richard Harrison, who a lot of you know, he's not here, he starts sharing this story about reconciling with his brother who's dying of AIDS. And I'm like, wow, I wonder who that message was intended for. Then I come to M6, and for those of you who come regularly, Richard came up here and shared the story about reconciling with his brother who's dying of AIDS. And I'm thinking, oh man, okay Lord, I will be obedient. So because I'm ever so brave, I went home and I sent my sister an email. It came back undelivered. I found another email address for her, so I sent her another email. It came back undelivered. The Lord said to me, did you really think I was going to let you get away with sending an email? Okay, no. So his plan, I have to go back to the UK to look after my mum, who's not well. So while I'm there, he says to me, how's your sister? So I write her a letter and I take it round to her house and I put it through a letterbox while she's out. Good plan. But I did put a phone number on there. So that night, I'm terrified. The phone rings and I'm expecting some big old get chewed out, you know. I hate you. Anyway, she says, what do you want? So I said, I want to ask for your forgiveness. So she said, well, what for? I said, well, I haven't spoken to you for 20 years. I mean, let's start there, you know, and then let's talk about why we haven't spoken for 20 years. So she agreed to meet me. We met, kind of strange. We sat down, and I just said, hey, I want to ask for your forgiveness. So she said, well, why? I said, well, you showed me unconditional love. I said, you know, you left home at 17. She said, yeah, I remember it well. I said, well, you'll also remember that I ended up in a fist fight with one of our mother's boyfriends. And I was the one who was asked to leave that night, not him. And I came to you, and you took me in, and you loved me, and you let me stay with you. I said, I want to ask for your forgiveness that I let you down, because when you said to me, you can't let Mum keep doing this to us, you got to choose, you know. She has no relationship with my mum, so she said, if you want a relationship with me, you better distance yourself from Mum. I said, I can never do that. So that was the end of our relationship. So I said, well, I asked for your forgiveness. And she thought about it, and she said, yeah, I forgive you. She said, but that's not the worst thing you ever did to me. I said, well, thanks. What did I do? She said, you were never there for me. I said, well, what do you mean? She said, well, when we were having all that trouble when we were all living at home, you were never there for me. I said, you left when you were 17, I was 12. What did you expect me to do? She said, you're my brother. You should have been there for me my whole life. You should have been there. You're my only living sibling. And you never supported me. So unsurprisingly, that got a little bit emotional. She went and got in her car and drove out, and I think all four wheels were spinning as she left the car park. Like, yeah, get me out of here. So I thought, well, that's that for another 20 years. The next day she phoned. She said, okay, I want to meet you and Kim for dinner. I want you to meet my fiancé, David. So we went for dinner. She got to meet Kim, which is the best part of me. And we did a lot of healing, and in fact, the people at the restaurant had to ask us to leave because they needed to close. We'd been there so long. The next night, she said, "Oh, hey, I want you to come around to our house." Okay, I'll get to the point, guys. Went to the house, more healing, etc., etc. And then I said, "Hey, we've got to go back to the States." But you know, you say that thing, "Hey, come visit any time." You know, I mean, it's just like 5,000 miles that way. You know. Pop in. I got back, and the Lord said to me, "Good job. When you seeing your sister again?" Give me a break. So I phoned her and I said, "Hey, you know, we really want you to come over." She said, "Oh, we'd love to, but can't afford it." So the Lord said to me, "Didn't I bless you with that money some time ago? Can you afford a couple of air tickets?" I said, "Yeah." So she came over. She came over for Christmas. I went to pick her up at San Jose Airport. So they'd had a 10-hour flight. They'd had an 8-hour time difference, plus. So I thought I was going to have a real quiet drive home. We'd been in the car about 30 minutes. And she said, "So what's happening between you and God?" I said, "Well, that's a lot of stuff. I mean, it's heavy, you won't understand." No, my sister doesn't know the Lord, but she was intrigued because she kind of saw a little bit of a difference in me. So we drove home 4 hours, we get in, so they've now been up like 3 days or something, and I think, well, they're going to go straight to bed. Oh no, she wants to sit on the couch and talk to Kim about how Kim introduced me to the Lord and about the journey of faith that I'm on. And suddenly, my sister's fiance says, "Well, I believe." She said, "What?" She's like, "He's like, yeah, I just never knew how to tell you, you know." She's real scary. My sister is like very scary. You don't want to do that. So finally they go to bed. So on Sunday, I said, "You're going to come to church?" So she said, yeah. So we're walking to church, and it's with Steve. And as we're walking in, she's kind of... I said, "Come on." I said, "You know, there's nothing to be scared of." I said, "Trust me, it's going to be fine." So we got in, and again, part of the Lord's plan, we couldn't sit together. I had to sit over on the side, but I could see her. And she's at church, and she's like a deer in the headlights. I mean, she's got wide eyes, and she's like, "What the heck, what is going on here?" And suddenly she sits down, and she just starts sobbing. And then she's up and she's singing, and then she's looking around, and then she's down and she's sobbing, and I'm like, I don't know what Steve's saying, but I mean, this is really heavy stuff. So we leave the church, get in the car, and I don't know how to raise the subject. So I'm quiet, and she said, "I just felt that I got home." She said, "I've never felt more at home in my life than I did in that church, listening to that message." My wife got to meet my new family. I'm now going back in May, not only to attend her wedding, but to do a reading at her wedding, to be introduced as her brother. So, what's my story, guys? My story is that I spent 32 years chasing what the world tells you is important. Collecting material things, seeking fame, looking for that, I don't know, that position. And what I realized after 32 years was that's just emptiness. That brings you zero satisfaction whatsoever. The Lord put me through some trials, and His love and His guidance delivered me through those things. And then I had a family that just showed me nothing but love, a family that accepted me for who I am and who support me. I got reconciled with a sister I hadn't spoken to for 20 years. Now I have the important things in life. Mostly I have the Lord. He's my Father, He's my mentor, He's my guide, He's my best friend. And I tell you guys, any of you who are sitting on the fence or chasing the dream as I was, or wrapped up in work and neglecting your family, you're on the wrong track, guys. Just embrace the Lord. Get that intimate relationship with Him. You will have more joy, more satisfaction, more contentment than you can possibly imagine. And your family will see it, and they'll love on you for it. So, I'm sorry my story is a bit vanilla, but hopefully it's kind of something that some of you can relate to in terms of how easy it is to get distracted and to listen to the little voice in your head that tells you that that's good. That's not good. That's not what this is about. So, thank you so much for listening to me and giving me your time.
Thank you, Stephen. What I'd like to do now is I'd like to ask all of the guides and co-guides to just stand up where you're at. You don't have to come up, but just stand up so you guys can be identified. So if you're here tonight and you haven't accepted Jesus as your Savior, find one of these guys. They'd be more than willing to pray for you. And also, if you just need prayer, you just need to connect with some guys and find out what's going on, well, find one of these guys and they'll pray with you. But I don't want to close out tonight without you thinking that you don't have an open door for that relationship with Jesus Christ. So definitely get some prayer tonight if you need it. So in closing, I'd like to thank Alan Teixeira for the use of his property. And this process goes pretty quick, so if you guys wouldn't mind helping with the chairs and the tables, we'll set those up, and then there's a dessert in the back.